Get us started here. Thank you for coming out to this Ramadan workshop. And we try to, inshallah, prepare for Ramadan, which is starting tonight, in a manner that will allow us to benefit more from Ramadan, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. What I'd like to point out here is a few things. Let me just configure something here. Just give me a second, please. And great. Okay. Now I think I am in a better place to do this. Alright, well, alhamdulillah. Okay, folks. So, here are the contents for the workshop today that we have. Firstly, we'll do an introduction to what Ramadan is. We'll do some discussion on what moon sighting or moon fighting is all about, inshallah. We will also then talk about people who are exempt from fasting, women and certain types, women in certain cases. For example, a man who's very old or a woman who's very old and sick, etc., etc. We'll talk about those things. We'll talk about what ruins a person's fast, what does not ruin a fast. Kafara for what happens if you ruin the fast, some recommendations of things to do while fasting, and lastly, what is not recommended during fasting. Okay, so that is that. Let me actually get my book here so I don't misspeak. And let's go through some of the content here. The ruling or fasting. Right? What is exactly fasting? Fasting is optional throughout the year, but mandatory in the month of Ramadan. Okay, it is mandatory in the month of Ramadan for the people as follows. For people who, if I can get my laser pointer, it is mandatory for the people who meet the following conditions. Okay, number one is a person who is Muslim. Of course, you're not Muslim, you don't have to fast, and perhaps you should, there's more important discussions that need to be had when it comes to talking about the idea of worshipping Allah alone and accepting the Prophet, peace be upon him, as the Prophet. But for the purposes of our discussion, a person has to be a Muslim before they can fast. Number two, the word that is there is an Arabic word. It's called mukallaf. Mukallaf. Okay? What is somebody who is mukallaf? Somebody who is mukallaf is somebody who is burdened by the responsibility of fasting. This person is burdened by the responsibility of fasting. This person, I'll explain inshallah in a little bit what this person is and what they represent. A mukallaf is somebody who is old enough and of sane mind. Okay, two things here: someone who is old enough and somebody who is of a sane mind. When I say sane mind, is that they're not crippled because of some really difficult mental illness disorder. Okay, something that's slightly more mild is not what I'm talking about, but something that's very crippling, like the extreme case of autism. Somebody who is suffering from that, a man or a woman who's suffering from that, is exempt from fasting because they're just not capable of executing the responsibilities of the Sharia. So they're exempt from that. Old enough is the other part of being mukallaf. Okay? Being of sound mind is one part, being old enough is the other part. And the old enough here is what? The age of fasting. What is old enough for a person to be required to fast?
You don't want me to answer.
Because you were there before. Somebody, you can take a guess. Throw out the numbers. Yes? Over 60? MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. We're all excused then, huh? Right? We're all under 60. What other?
Start of puberty.
Yes. When a child reaches the age of puberty, that is actually the time when they become old enough for them to be liable for the actions of the requirements of the Sharia. Okay? For fasting, for prayer, for Hajj, etc., etc. That's when that responsibility kicks in. That doesn't mean that a person shouldn't fast when they're younger or shouldn't pray when they're young. That's to train them and get them in the habit of doing so. But when does it become a binding requirement? Age of puberty. Very capable. Somebody who is capable. Capable means somebody who is not sick. Alright? Somebody who is not sick, that is a person who is capable. And we'll define sickness in a little bit, what that means. And there's a sickness where a person is sick temporarily. There's a chronic illness. We'll inshallah differentiate between the two. But here in this case, we're assuming this person is free of all ailments, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Alright? And this person is not traveling. Not traveling as in, they're not in transit. Okay? They're in their home city or in adopted home city, and they're there for an extended period of time. Alright? In transit will be someone, say, going from here to Windsor. Okay? Or going from here to Toronto, if Toronto is not your home. That is a person who would be in transit. For them, the fasting is not required when they are in transit. Alright? And we'll talk about this as well in a little bit. What are the pillars of fasting? Okay? We spoke about who needs to fast. Everybody who meets these conditions has to fast. Okay? But let's talk about the pillars of fasting. Alright? Now, you are Muslim, alhamdulillah, you are mukallaf, you're old enough, you're of sane mind, you are not sick, you are not traveling. Now, you have to fast. So what is the fast? Right? What is the pillars of it? The pillars of fasting is, firstly, and most importantly, not eating and drinking during the hours of the fast. During the hours of the fast. The hours of the fast are from what to what? Yes. Sunrise to sunset. Other ideas?
Dawn to dusk.
Fajr to Maghrib. Excellent as well. From?
Dawn to dusk.
Dawn to dusk. Alright. Now, what is the difference between sunrise and dawn? I'm not talking about two different brands of detergent here. Okay? What is the difference between the two? The difference is, if this is the horizon, and this is the sun, alright? Dawn is when the sun has just peeked over the horizon. The first moment of light in the dark sky of night. That is what? Dawn. Sun rises when the sun is fully above the horizon. Alright? So more precisely, the time of Fajr, the beginning of the time of Fajr is dawn, and that's the time that our fast starts for. And it ends at the time of sunset, right? When the sun has fully set below the horizon. That, in those hours, and only in those hours, we are not eating and drinking, alright? We're not engaging in marital relations, okay? Specifically, a couple having intercourse. And we'll talk about what this means, inshallah. And lastly, we have to make the intention of fasting, right? The intention of fasting isn't that I say, I intend to fast today, okay? That is not what's required, alright? What's required is your intent is in your heart. Your intention is in your heart. It's expressed by your action. If you wake up at 3 a.m. to eat, is that an expression of your intention? Yes, sir. Exactly. So that is what the intention is referring to. It is expressing your intention to fast that day. It isn't that you were just hungry for like 5 hours, so you said, you know what, I'm just going to continue my fast. That's not the approach for the fasting of Ramadan. You have to, before dawn, make up your mind that I am fasting today. Okay? So that is, these are the 3 pillars of fasting. Okay. Now, we have the idea. This is, I think, very obvious. What fasting is, who has to fast. But now the question is, the fast of Ramadan particularly, when does it begin? Right? When does the fast of Ramadan begin? You all can see this, right? So, there is the Prophet ﷺ saying, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the authentic narration, that sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi. Okay? He said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that fast when you sight the moon, and also have your Ramadan finish, your Eid begin when you sight the moon. Are you all with me? Okay. So he said specifically, "Sumu li ru'yatihi," fast because of sighting the moon. All right. So that's explicit text of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right. And it's very, very clear what he's intending. So here is the situation when it comes to sighting the moon. All right. We'll get into the specifics of our particular situation in a little bit, but first let's understand the principle that the Prophet ﷺ wanted us to implement. What is that principle? It is to sight the moon. So the lunar calendar, which is what we follow for the Islamic months, and then Ramadan is one of those months, has either 29 or 30 days. It's not 30 or 31 and then 28 in February, but sometimes 29 in February because of the leap year. It's not like that. It's either 29 or it is 30. What's different about the lunar calendar as compared to the Gregorian calendar is the Gregorian calendar is a event that's marked by the seasons. Okay? Like the sun is there and the earth goes around the sun, and one revolution of the earth around the sun is 1 year. Yes or no? So that's actually like a physical thing that can mark the whole year. Whereas for the lunar calendar, the moon goes around the earth once a month, right? Every 29 to 30 days, it's gone around it. So there isn't something specifically that marks it. And that's why you would find the lunar calendar moving throughout the year. Okay, it's shorter because of that reason, and it moves throughout the year. And that's why right now we have Ramadan in the summer, and in about 15 years we'll have Ramadan in the winter. That'll be awesome, because then you don't have to, it's a very small fast, inshallah. Okay? It'll be awesome now too, no worries. So that is the background. Now let's see, on the 29th night of Ramadan, or 29th night of the month of Sha'ban, okay, the month before Ramadan, we look at the sky and there's three possibilities. Possibility number one, the night is clear. What does that mean? There is no clouds, there's no obstruction, there's no like dust storm or something. You can clearly see the sky. Okay? And if that is the case, and you see the moon, then the next day is Ramadan, the first of Ramadan. Are you all with me? Right? If that is the case, then the next day is first of Ramadan. Yes or no? I'll write first here as well for you. Okay. In the case that it's a clear night and the moon is not seen, what does that tell us? It's not Ramadan, it is still the month of Sha'ban. So the next day is going to be not Ramadan, right? Not Ramadan. Ramadan will be the day after, alright? Not Ramadan, it will be the day after. The other third case is the night is unclear. The night is unclear. For example, there's clouds. And because of that, the moon is not seen. Right? If the night is unclear and you see the moon, that defeats the purpose of the night being clear or not, right? That's why the fourth option is not there. But the night is unclear, and because of that reason, the moon is not sighted. Subhanallah. That is a difficult situation. In that case, the Prophet ﷺ told us, إنما الشهر تسع وعشرون فلا تصوموا حتى تروا الهلال ولا تفطروا حتى تروه فإن غم عليكم فاقدروا له. So, if you are not able do qadr of it, okay? Not like qadr of like I'm valuing the moon, but he said do qadr of it, and the explanation is twofold. One explanation is then assume it's the 29th. I'm sorry, assume it's the 30th tomorrow and fast the day after. Okay, that is one opinion. The other opinion is of the scholars of the Hanbali school of thought, Imam Ahmad and the rest. They say no, faqduru lahu means you qadr of it means you shorten it. So you say the last month, the month of Sha'ban is 29, and the next day by default is Ramadan. Okay, that's the approach of the Hanbali school. Okay? They say it's going to be Ramadan unless you don't see the moon on a clear night. Otherwise, we're going to say it's Ramadan. Alright? Everybody else says no. For you to say it is Ramadan, you have to see the moon and then you say next day is Ramadan. If you can't see it, assume that it's not Ramadan. Okay? That is, just let me finish it. That is the position of the classical schools. Okay? And what they would do is then they would discuss from sighting, how does, if a moon is sighted somewhere, what does that do for the people? So for example, they say, if it is seen, وَإِذَا رَآهُ أَهْلُ بَلَدٍ لَزِمَ النَّاسَ كُلَّهُمْ الصَّوْمُ. They say that if a person sees it, then the whole country has to fast. Alright? So they are of the opinion, back in that time, that once the moon is sighted in any town, in any province, the whole balad fasts. Okay? And the balad is not the geographical boundaries, it's basically as far as like the government's reach is. Okay? So a government, as far as they can reach, whatever borders they control, as soon as it's seen in any part of their control, everyone's fasting. Alright? That is the opinion that the classical scholars held. Now, that is in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th century of the world. In the 21st century, the world is much different, isn't it? Is it? Very much different. Okay? So, that difference plays into the Sharia. How does it play into the Sharia? The question is, if the moon is seen in Saudi Arabia, should I fast in Canada? If the moon is seen in South Africa, should I fast in Canada? If the moon is seen in California, should I fast in Southwest Ontario? These are the questions that are asked. Or should we see the moon in our time zone? And that's our local zone, as an example. These are the questions, and that's why you see the differences of opinion. Some people are like, well, we'll follow Saudi. Someone's like, no, we're going to follow the whole world. Someone's like, no, we're going to follow only North America. This is the reason why you hear these different approaches is because you're trying to take a situation where times were much simpler and apply it to more complicated times. Okay? And because there's so many people and so many schools of legal position in Islam, that's why you have different people saying different things and advocating for different positions. That is in essence what you find, but that's in the people who say you have to sight the moon to start Ramadan. Okay? You have to sight the moon to start Ramadan. The position that majority of the people of Toronto, for example, and majority of the North American communities now that are following is global sighting. Anywhere in the world it's sighted, we will accept it. That's the majority now in specifically Toronto, but I would also say that in North America as well. The local idea that it has to be in the city or has to be in the time zone has kind of gone out of fashion for obvious reasons. It's not very practical, right? And it's not very pragmatic, in fact. Like the global one is good. If it's seen in Bangladesh and they're confirming it, why not? If they see it in Egypt, why not? If they see it in South Africa, why not? Right? As long as it's seen and it's confirmed to be seen, then that is a acceptable sighting. So that, brothers and sisters, is the khulasa, the summary of the local versus global sighting. Now there is another position, which is what? Calculations. MashaAllah. Yes? And that is what we follow. That is what all of London is actually following. Okay? Here is the explanation of how calculations work. Okay? The calculations work on the premise that the Prophet ﷺ, when he said fast by sighting the moon, did he have any other option besides sighting the moon? Besides wahi from Allah, like revelation, besides wahi, like just natural, normal circumstances, did he have a second option to do so? He didn't, right? All he could do was sight the moon. So the fact that he didn't do it does not mean that it's not legislated. he didn't do it because he couldn't do it. Right? He didn't do it because he couldn't. Another example of this is the Prophet ﷺ did not compile the final version of the Quran in a book form. Okay? He had finished the Quran and taught it to hundreds of Sahaba. Hundreds, not just like one or two or five. Hundreds of them knew it from Al-Fatiha to Nas exactly in that order. Okay? But the final book version was not prepared by the Prophet, peace be upon him. It was prepared by who? Not Uthman radiallahu anhu. That will be too late actually. Not even Umar. That will be too late. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did it right after the year the Prophet, peace be upon him, passed away. Okay? And what happened is that a lot of those people who had memorized Quran were martyred in a battle. Okay? So Umar said to Abu Bakr that if you don't do something about it, the Quran will get lost because the people of the Quran are dying. So let us now put it together in a book format. Abu Bakr said to Umar, how can I do something that the Prophet ﷺ did not do? And Umar said, Hiya wallahi khair, or Huwa wallahi khair. By Allah, this is a good thing. Okay? And then Abu Bakr got convinced. And then they appointed Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu to be the man who takes on this responsibility, because Zayd was like the Prophet's #1 student when it comes to Quran. Okay? So they said, you are the one who used to write the revelation. You were there when the Prophet last recited the whole thing to Jibreel. You were there in all of those situations. Definitely you are the man for this job. Even though Abu Bakr has been around since the beginning of Islam. But he chose Zayd because Zayd had focused and concentrated on this more than anybody else. And then Zayd said the same thing. How can I do something? And how can you do something the Prophet didn't do? And they said to Zayd the same thing. And then he, radiallahu anhu, compiled the Quran. And then its next version was solidified and distributed by Uthman radiallahu anhu. So that's why it's called Rasam Uthmani, right? The script of Uthman radiallahu anhu, because he is the one who took that mushaf and sent it to the different parts of the Muslim world. But the man who compiled it first was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Alright? So here, the Prophet, the point of the story is, the Prophet ﷺ didn't do something because he wasn't able to. Right? He was busy with people accepting Islam. He was busy with the governance of the new state. He was busy with the rules of the Sharia. He was busy with so many things that he did not get a chance to do this. Alright? So that goes to show that the Prophet ﷺ not having done something doesn't always mean that that thing shouldn't be done. Okay? If he didn't do something and he could have, that's something that we say, you know what, we don't want to do that. That's adding something to the religion. But he didn't do something that he had no way of doing, or he never got a chance to do, that we could say, you know what, there's a possibility. There's a possibility. So from that you can say that, you know what, the Prophet said, Sumu li ru'yatihi, because that's the only option he had. For us, we have other options. Okay? You could also say the idea of ru'ya in Islam, or ru'ya linguistically, is something not exactly only by the eyes. Okay? There's ru'ya which is فَانْظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى. From the same word ru'ya, Ibrahim a.s. is asking Ismail, what is your opinion? What is your opinion? So ru'ya is used also for opinion. It's not just mere, like using your eyes only. So there is linguistic precedence to say it doesn't only mean looking with your eyes. As long as you are convinced in your opinion that the moon is there. As long as you are convinced that the moon is there, then you go with it, right? And that also is in line with what the Hanbali scholars, Imam Ahmad, kind of alluded to. فَقْدُرُوا لَهُ. Assume the 30th day. If you don't see the moon, assume it's Ramadan. Okay? So that kind of puts the whole thing together. So the calculations has some precedence in the Sharia. It has. And it's a position that the European Research Council of Fatwa and the Fiqh Council of North America, led by many esteemed scholars, like Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui, who's a great scholar from California. He studied in Medina. they're the heads of this for many years, almost like now, like over 3 decades now. They've been putting forward research to show this is a credible and legitimate opinion. And because of that, we say, you know what, this is a position that's good in Islam, and this is a position that has many benefits, right? It makes sense. It's not like completely going against the Sharia. It's not going against the word of the Prophet because of the 2 reasons I highlighted. The Prophet couldn't have done it, and ru'ya doesn't only mean by eyes. Number 2, we calculate all the other months. The other 10 months out of the 12, only Dhul Hijjah and Ramadan, we insist on citing. Every other month, calculated, right? So if we can accept every other month to be calculated, why not accept Ramadan and also Dhul Hijjah? Point number 3, that the calculation is actually more certain than any person's citing would be. Okay? Because there is scientific base to it. Okay? You are 100% sure, or as close as 100% as you can be. So the certainty level is actually quite a bit higher, and of course it's also convenient. Okay? We adopt this position in New York, for example, in New York State, they adopted this position, and then they managed to convince, I think in New York City, the school board to give Eid off to the kids. It's an official holiday in New York. In New York City is one of the school boards in New York City. I don't know which one exactly. So for us now we know this for a fact. We can move this position together as the City of London, all of us together. Now the next step is what? We go to Thames Valley Board and say, you know what? We need June the 3rd off for all of our kids. Right? And now we can do it because we have 100% certainty of when Eid is going to be for the next, 50 years. Right? So it's something that's beneficial for us on so many levels. And that's why, alhamdulillah, the 3 major organizations of the city, along with Bosnian Islamic Center and others, have adopted this position that we will go with this bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Alright? So that's the calculations. Questions about this particular point? Yes?
Can you, it's like the moon and it's when it's out here, can you
mashallah, elaborate. It was very nice to, fly into space and to see if the moon is there. The moon is definitely there.
technologies for spacecraft and things like that?
You can use anything, right? That's not a problem. But that's, if you're gonna do all that trouble, might as well just use the table of calculations, right? Yes or no? Do you agree with that? All right. Other questions? Yes.
Why do you need to come to this conclusion?
Yeah. It's an excellent question. Why did it take so long for this to happen, right? And generally, change is slower, okay? And when you have many different people of many different opinions, it's even slower, subhanAllah, than normal. In Toronto, for example, you had some major organizations like ISNA, like MAC, like ICNA. They had all. So there have been some organizations that were trying to do this. It didn't always work. People weren't always on board with it. And in Toronto specifically, people still are not on board with it, right? But we have the great opportunity here in London because we're smaller and the masajid are much closer to be able to implement this, inshallah ta'ala. So that's the short answer, inshallah. Other questions? No question. I'll tell you one thing, okay? That when Muslims came to Canada, mostly, we didn't come here to become united. Okay? We didn't come here to settle and unite and let's revive Islam. We came here to, find better opportunities for life. So that's why you have people who came and settled in one place, and people who came and settled in one place. That's why you have these differences. If you all came with the idea we're coming here to become one, then you wouldn't have this problem. So it kind of goes back to it, but alhamdulillah, we try to make the best of our situation. Alright?
Never too late.
It's never too late, inshallah. Never too late. Okay, people who are exempt from fasting. Okay, is it that is exempt from fasting? What happened to my thing here? Oh, there. All right. Who is exempt from fasting? Exempted from fasting in 3 ways. Okay, you make up the fast. You're exempt temporarily, and then you can make it up later. Okay, because overall you're fine. You're able to fast. The other opportunity or the other situation is you are not able to make it up. Like you can't ever fast again. That's the second situation. And the third one is in the middle. And we'll talk about what that in the middle situation is as well. Okay, so let us look at the first situation where you are able to fast later. You just can't fast right now. Okay, what is that situation? Who are the people who are in this particular situation? Number one is a traveler, someone who is in transit. So I say take a flight to Vancouver, for example. Okay, and I go for 3 days. Okay, the day back even, all of those days, I will consider myself to be a what? Traveler, and I have the option of not fasting. I have the option. Is it necessary for me not to fast? No. If I want to really fast, I can fast. Alright? But I have the option. I even have the option of saying, you know what, I'll start my fast. I'll fast and I'll head out to Vancouver. And if it gets too difficult, I can break my fast and make up my mind at that time, and there's no sin. Okay? So that is when it comes to a traveler. Somebody, if I can just finish, inshallah, if you don't, and then I think the questions can be answered together. Huh? So I am traveling, and that is, like I'm okay to fast normally, but I have the option of not doing so. That is the traveler. Alright? The next is a person who is sick, but sick not chronically. Okay? So I got maybe like a very severe fever. Okay? And that has me down for a couple of days. So I look at the situation. If I'm sick, I have the option of not fasting. If I am sick where fasting will actually hurt me and be detrimental to me, I should not fast. Okay? I should not fast. So maybe say, for example, like I have a migraine. Okay? The fasting is not going to like, make the migraine any worse. But it's going to be a tough day. I say, you know what? I'll deal with it, inshallah. Okay? So I fast with the migraine. But assume I have something like I have a really bad viral fever. Okay? And me fasting means I'm not taking my medicine, or not viral, like I have an infection. Okay? And me fasting means I'm not taking my antibiotics. That will make me sicker. That will make the infection worse. So in that case, I should not fast. The first one, I have the option, but I can say, you know what, this is really difficult, my head's really hurting, my migraine is very tough, I will not fast and I'll make it up later. Okay? So that is the person who is sick. However, this generally is a decision you should not just make by yourself. You wake up and like, oh, I have a headache, you know what, I have a long day today, I'm not going to fast. It should be something that is like a real disease. And if you're not sure, something that you can ask a doctor, particularly a good Muslim doctor about. Okay, that is that. The third is a pregnant or a breastfeeding lady. Okay, a lady who is pregnant or breastfeeding, they have the option of not fasting and then making it up afterwards if they are afraid for themselves. Okay, so they're like, you know what, nothing is gonna happen to the baby if I fast. Okay, the baby will get enough milk if they're breastfeeding. The baby will be fine as long, while I'm fasting. But I feel something will happen to me. My health will become it will be detrimental to my health. Okay? In that case, that lady should not fast and should make up the fast afterwards, after Ramadan. Alright, folks? So this is something that is the situations of people who are not fasting. In normal circumstances, they would be fasting. So they just make it up. The second case here is somebody who is just not able to fast anymore. Okay? They're just not able to fast anymore. They are the ones who have to feed a person for every fast they miss. And this is two types of people. Number one, someone who is old. Okay? Not old as in like you feel like you're old, but like you're actually really old, and fasting will be detrimental to your health. Okay? Particularly summer fasts, particularly difficult fasts. Okay? For example, sometimes you read this news reports that people are dying in Pakistan or India because it's so hot, and these are old people. Okay? Those old people should be told, don't fast. Or break your fast if you're fasting, and feed a person. That's it. Allah has given you that exception. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not مَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيَجْعَلَ عَلَيْكُم مِّنْ حَرَجٍ. Allah does not want to put any difficulty in the religion. That's why these exceptions are there. The person who is old should either he's told that you're not fasting, he's stopped from fasting, or if they figure out I cannot do it anymore, then they should themselves stop and feed a person as kaffara. Okay? Or as a fidya. Sickness that is permanent. They call this maradin la yurja bur'uhu. A type of a sickness that is chronic, you have no hope of recovering. Someone has cancer, for example. Okay? And they are, taking all this medication and dialysis treatment, or all these things is happening to them. Clearly this man or woman cannot fast. Okay? They are going to devastate themselves if they are trying to fast. So this is a person who is exempt from fasting, and this is somebody then who feeds for every single day a person. Okay? The feeding of this, the fidya is وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٌ. The ayah describes it. It is the food of one poor person. Okay? What does that mean? It is to give a person, a handful. Mud is a handful of wheat. Okay? Or 2 handfuls of other types of food. So like 2 handfuls of dates, 2 handfuls of lentils, 2 handfuls of whatever else constitutes staple foods, okay, like rice or something. Now that's how the scholars back in the day describe it. Today I don't think you can go, like, if you didn't fast, you're finding a person on the street and he's like, hey, come here, here's a bag of wheat for you, buddy, right? He'd be like, what is this? So the idea is it's equivalent to that. Okay, it's equivalent to that, something that counts as a meal. So as long as you're able to provide a meal to someone who's poor, that is making up. You can provide a meal, or you can feed one person like 30 times. You have 30 fasts to give kafara from, you can feed one person 30 times, no problem. Or you can feed 30 people, 1 meal each. Either way, it's fine, there is no issue. So that is feeding a person. Last option, or the last situation, is someone who has to make up the fast and also feed. Okay? And this is a unique circumstance. This unique circumstance is when the lady is pregnant and breastfeeding, pregnant/breastfeeding, and then she doesn't fast because she's afraid of what's going to happen to the baby. If she doesn't fast, the milk will run out. If she fasts, the milk will run out and she cannot feed the baby. Okay? And the baby doesn't take formula or something, or she doesn't want to give formula. It's her choice. Okay? But she wants to breastfeed the baby, and the baby is just refusing, or the milk just dries up. For that lady, or a pregnant lady who is fasting, and that fast is going to make it difficult, the fetus is going to be harmed, then that person should not fast, and they have to make it up later. And because it's not because of themselves, but it's because of the baby, they feed on top of that as well. Okay, so that's the third situation here. This is the most complicated one, of course, and it applies to a very specific group of people. But this is the opinion of Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhuma, the cousin of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He said that وَالْحُبْلَ وَالْمُرْضِعْ إِذَا خَافَتَ عَلَى أَوْلَادِهِمَا أَفْتَرَطَ وَأَطْعَمَتَ. He says the one who is pregnant and breastfeeding, if they are afraid for their baby, they need to make it up and also feed a person on top of that as well. So these are the people who are exempt from fasting. People who are overall in good health, but they can make it up later. People who cannot ever make it up, they have to fast. And the specific situation of this particular lady who's got to make it up and also feed a person because of the baby that she is taking care of. Okay, that is the idea. Questions about that? Yes.
I was going to say you're traveling.
Yes.
And you choose to fast, but you're traveling across different time zones.
Yes.
Will that affect, because the hours will change depending on where you're traveling to, where you're traveling
Yes.
from. So how do you time your fast?
Excellent. So you time your fast always by, you start your fast by whichever time zone you're in, and you end your fast by whatever time zone you end up in when the Maghrib comes in. Okay. So if you are going from Toronto to Vancouver, okay, your fast will add another 3 hours to your fast at least. Okay. On top of whatever else delay is there in Maghrib and Vancouver, but you'll add at least 3 hours to your fast. Okay? If you go eastward, say you're going to Saudi Arabia, right? Then you actually lose time and your fast becomes a little shorter. So you could say that if you're traveling eastwards, you could say, you know what, I'll fast because the fast is actually shorter. But when you're coming westwards, flying westwards, you could say, you know what, this is going to be a very long fast. And I'm just going to skip this one, inshallah. Make sense? Yes.
When you said about feeding or feeding the poor, when you're giving instead, if it's a sickness that is permanent, I've heard both the things that people give, say back home.
Yes.
And they like a meal,
Yes.
which is only say maybe $1 it comes up to.
Yes.
You're supposed to feed the person which is according to where you're living.
Yes.
Right?
So as long as the person gets a meal, okay? As long as the person gets a meal, it is ideal when it comes to feeding and giving charity. By the way, in general, the order of preference is as follows. Firstly, a relative. Okay? That is the first and most preferred person you should feed and give charity to. Okay? Because that is charity and Salatul Rahim and taking care of family. There's 2 rewards. The second preference is someone who is local. Someone who is in the vicinity of where you live. The relative could be anywhere in the world, by the way. Okay? But the other option is local. And the third preference is somebody who is, anywhere else in the world. Exception to that, of course, is if there's like a major crisis somewhere, right? Like a major famine in, Somalia, for example. Then they become more of a higher need than other people. But general circumstances, this is how it's supposed to be. So now, when you're feeding a person, that's kind of how you should follow. If that person ends up being in say in Pakistan or India, and of course the meal there is peanuts compared to the meal here, as long as it's a meal. Okay? If you want to, out of the goodness of your heart, provide them the meal for the whole day, alhamdulillah, that is good. But what you really need to do is one meal. Right? That's what you have. That's the requirement, inshallah. Anybody, Muslim, non-Muslim, doesn't matter. Right? You can find a person on, what's that street? Horton and Warcliffe, there's always a person there. You're not fasting, hand him a shawarma. Or something. That's a meal.
Poor though.
Huh?
Has to be poor.
Has to be poor. Probably the guy's poor. I mean, he's on the street asking for money. So you don't have to see his, bank records and his tax records to say, yes, you qualify for a meal. Inshallah. Yes.
So you say you feed one person.
Yes.
One family, you feed it as one person?
No, one person is a person. If you're feeding the family, say family has 5 people, then you fed 5 meals.
If you don't know how many people in the family, you can't ask.
Sure, but I'm saying the minimum required to make up the fast is 1 meal for 1 person. But you're like, you know what, I cannot feed this man. He has just this man only. He has a wife and 3 kids. So you give them the money for, or the meal for all of them. Alhamdulillah, you've gone way beyond what you are required to do. Inshallah. Okay? this is an excellent question. You know, when it comes to the obligation, there's a minimum, but there's no maximum. Okay, there's a minimum amount you have to feed one person. Maximum, there isn't any. It's up to you, inshallah. All right. Other questions? Yes.
So that when you were exemption, you were talking about the chronic illness.
Yes.
Like if someone has a chronic type of migraine,
Yes.
right? So obviously, maybe like some people like have on a like 365. So what they do?
I mean, if your migraine is every single day,
Yeah.
mashallah, it's a very tough life.
There
There are people like that. So generally, this category of a chronic illness is someone like this. You know, a migraine is generally you get a migraine and it goes away,
Yeah,
right?
sometimes,
You get a fever and it goes away, right? This is the cancer is not just going away, right? Diabetes isn't just going away. Okay, so that's what this is referring to. That particular situation, that person should refer to a good Muslim doctor. Okay, the key is it's gotta be a good Muslim doctor. Okay, if you ask Dr. Smith, he'll be like, yeah, don't fast. You have to ask Dr. Abdullah or Dr. Maryam. Okay, they'll tell you, inshallah. Okay. All right, let's move on, inshallah. There's quite a bit of content to cover, and what I'll do is like I'll break in about at the end of this slide, inshallah. What ruins the fast, and then we'll take a small break just to gather our breaths, get a sip of water or whatnot, and then we'll finish up the rest of the slide in the next session. Okay, this is the last one for this particular start. What okay? Number one is eating/drinking intentionally. Okay, eating or drinking intentionally is something that will ruin a person's fast. It goes without saying. What happens if you eat or drink unintentionally? That is something that is not a problem, because the Prophet ﷺ said that if a person has consumed food and he has forgotten about it, like they ate without realizing that they're fasting, then that person is فَلْيُتِمَّ صَوْمَهُ فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاهُ. That person should complete their fast because Allah has provided them food and water. Okay, so unintentional, no problem. Intentional, however, is the problem, and that is obviously going to destroy a person's fast. Of course, this is during the hours of the fast. Likewise, marital relations during the hour of the fast, during the hours of the fast, that is something that will ruin a person's fast. This does not include something like just foreplay or a couple engaging in showing their affection. This is actually intercourse. It is specifically referring to intercourse, and that is where the fast is ruined. Even if the intercourse is not completed, it still will ruin the fast as long as they have started the act. So this is a very important thing to consider, because it goes against the sanctity of the fast. It goes against the sanctity of the fast. It applies to somebody who is masturbating, okay, and they complete the act of masturbation. That person has ruined their fast because this is an intentional act. Okay. Also, what ruins a fast is intentionally vomiting, intentionally throwing up. Not unintentional. Person smells something or ate something that's not good and they threw up. Their fast is fine. But intentionally doing this, making yourself throw up, that is something that will ruin a person's fast as well. Okay. The second last one is hijama. Hijama is a old ancient method of treatment where you take a cup and create a small vacuum by burning the oxygen inside the cup and then place it, and that vacuum will suck the blood, and that is the practice of hijama. Now hijama is done where then once that suction is created, that they would create incisions, small incisions, and blood is drained from that. Okay. that type of hijama is the one that breaks the fast. If hijama cupping is dry cupping, there's no incisions made, it's just suction and it's just to help with the blood flow, there's nothing wrong with that. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Aftar al-hajimu wal-mahjum." The person who does the action of hijama and the one who's performed hijama is performed upon them has basically broken their fast and ruined their fast. Okay. Lastly, in this list is the start of a woman's period or the start of her postpartum. The moment she has notices blood, that will ruin that lady's fast. This is important because the Prophet ﷺ told us that a woman who is in her period or was in postpartum is not allowed to fast. This is not an optional thing. It's not a choice. She's not allowed to. Okay, and this is the ruling the Prophet ﷺ has given us. If this happens to a lady, then say like she was fasting in the morning and then during the day she saw some blood, then that day's fast is ruined and she has to make up all the days after Ramadan is over once she has gone off her period. That is not bound by any time of the month. As long as it's done within the year, it's fine. Likewise, say a lady is fasting and then she goes into labor, delivers the child, and her postpartum starts. The moment her postpartum bleeding starts, her fast is broken, and she has to wait until she becomes clean again when she's not bleeding, and makes up her fast afterwards. So this is that. Now, interesting thing here, brothers and sisters, particularly the sisters, that women who are like the Prophet has told the women not to fast when they're in their period, and also told them not to pray when they're in their period. Okay, this is important because if the Prophet says don't do something and you don't do it, is there reward in that? No? Is there reward in that? The Prophet says don't lie and you don't lie. Is there reward in that? No. Yes, right? The Prophet says don't drink alcohol, you don't drink alcohol. Is there reward in that? Yes, right? So the sister who is not fasting because she is in her period, okay? She is not fasting because she is in postpartum. Is there reward for her? 100%, because she is accepting the command of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? And she makes up the fast of Ramadan after Ramadan, and those make-up fasts have the same ajr as if it was in Ramadan. Right? So she does not lose any bit of ajr, any bit of the blessings of Ramadan, not a bit of it does she lose. Everything is intact for her. In fact, there is more reward if you think about it in one way, because she's obeying the Prophet ﷺ and then making up for her fast afterwards. And it's also maybe like a nice break. I don't know how it feels like, but I think for the sisters, you know what it is like. It's a nice break you get in the middle of Ramadan. Okay, I'll actually, if you don't mind, so what does not ruin a fast, we'll talk about inshallah after a small break. We'll take a break for maybe a few minutes, maybe 5 or 7 minutes inshallah. What's the time right now?
5 after 3. 5 after 3.
Is it 5 after 3 really? SubhanAllah. Okay, let's take a break until 3:15 inshallah, 10 minutes, and then we'll restart, and the last bit we will only need about half hour to complete inshallah. So we'll be done by 4 bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan. Questions about this slide or what doesn't ruin what ruins the fast? Or should we do questions afterwards? Questions afterwards? Okay, alhamdulillah. So we're continuing our discussion of fasting. We spoke about what ruins the fast, and now the next thing that we have to talk about is what does not ruin the fast. So it is everything that we mentioned here, but the opposite of it, or like the exception to it. So eating and drinking intentionally would break a person's fast. So eating and drinking unintentionally will not break a person's fast. Okay. This includes also for a person who is tasting the food. Okay, tasting the food is something that is permissible for the one who's cooking. Okay, not for like I'm not cooking, my wife's cooking. I'm like, you know what? Let me taste it. Delicious. Okay, that's not the idea. The idea is it is the one who is cooking. They say, for example, Imam Ahmad, the book that describes Imam Ahmad's opinions on this says, وَيُكْرَهُ ذَوْقُ طَعَامٍ بِلَا حَاجَةٍ. Okay, and then the scholar says about this, al-mansus anhu أنه لا بأس به لحاجة ومصلحة. And this is the opinion from this is the opinion of Imam Ahmad and Imam al-Bukhari, and this is narrated from Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. What is the opinion? The opinion is the one who needs to taste for the sake of a reason, that person should taste the food, and there is no problem with that. However, tasting is not like eating. Eating is what constitutes eating is it's reached your throat. Tasting is it's on the tip of your tongue. All right. So that's a very particular differentiation, a very clear differentiation made between the two. Okay. What does not marital relations and masturbation will ruin a person's fast, because that's intentional. That's an intentional act, whereas having a wet dream is unintentional, and that is something that does not ruin a fast. A wet dream will not ruin a person's fast. Unintentional vomiting, intentional did ruin it, unintentional will not ruin it. There's no problem with that. Hijama would ruin the fast. That's bleeding from hijama, but bleeding from a cut does not break or ruin a person's fast. So if someone got cut, someone was, like maybe like at work they got cut, or in the kitchen they got cut, and they're bleeding from it, that does not ruin their fast at all. Okay. Other items, miscellaneous items that will not ruin a person's fast. Donating blood. That's a question mark. The scholars differ about what that looks like. Some would say donating blood is like hijama, and it acts actually on the body like hijama acts on the body. Okay. Some people say that if you donate blood enough, it actually is good for your health as well. Just like hijama drains you of that blood and brings all those benefits. So that group would say it's kind of like hijama anyway, so it will break your fast. Others would say, well, hijama is specifically what the Prophet said. He didn't refer to giving blood or donating blood, so that is exempted. What I would say is it's best to stay away from this in the hours of fasting. Okay, unless there's an emergency. If there's like an emergency and blood needs to be given to the people, that's a different scenario. But in normal circumstances, I would say stay away from this. And you can do this maybe after Ramadan or after the month or after the hours of fasting are done, if possible. Okay, injection. An injection, like medicine, okay, will not break a person's fast. Okay, however, something like an IV, okay, that has nutritional benefits, that is something that will break a person's fast. However, someone who's taking IV shouldn't be fasting anyway, because they're so deprived nutritionally that they need to take this shot of nutrients. That person shouldn't be fasting in the first place anyway. But an injection for medicine will not break a person's fast. However, taking medicine, like swallowing a pill, is that going to break your fast? It will break your fast. Okay, so the differentiation is made here between the two. Brushing teeth, very much encouraged at all times. Also encouraged during a person is fasting. It does not break a person's fast. Okay, brushing teeth with toothpaste also does not break a person's fast. Care should be, of course, exercised in trying to make sure that we're not, gargling with too much water or rinsing our mouths with too much water. That by itself is not recommended by the scholars, to gargle and use too much water to rinse your mouths. It's not recommended. Likewise, you can apply that to brushing teeth. Just be cautious of the fact that you're fasting. Well, with the toothpaste or without toothpaste, either way is fine. And of course, miswak is always recommended. Misusing miswak is always recommended. And some of scholars, like my teacher, would say brushing teeth is kind of like miswak because it achieves the same purpose. So from that, and that note is recommended, inshallah. It does not break your fast. Eye drops will not break a person's fast. If a person is taking eye drops, that does not invalidate their fast. That will be okay. Medicated cream for skin. A person is taking cream that has like cortisone in it or something for eczema. That cream will not break a person's fast because it's not going through your throat. Okay, nicotine patches for those who are smoking and unfortunately are unable to break that habit. Smoking will actually break your fast because it's going through your throat. But nicotine patches will not break your fast. In fact, someone like Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, the great scholar from Saudi Arabia, rahimahullah, who lived about 2 decades ago, he actually encouraged people to do this so that they can fast and hopefully get rid of this habit. Ramadan becomes a way for them to break this habit of smoking. Alright? Questions about this? Yes?
So like in school we have gym class. So
Yes.
while you're fasting, are you allowed to like rinse your mouth?
You're allowed to rinse your mouth, there's no problem. You're allowed to rinse your mouth, even gargle. Okay, but be careful of not, allowing that to go down your throat. Is that okay? Okay, great. We have the great Hakim Olajuwon who used to play basketball while fasting, won the championship that year as well while fasting. We used to have many great athletes who would fast and participate. I remember there was another Sharif Abdul Rahim, the Vancouver Grizzlies. I don't know if you remember. He used to fast as well, huh?
You've been like basketball.
Yes, I am. It's even right now the guy who plays for the Blazers. What's his name? Enes Kanter,
Yeah.
right? Muslim guy. So he's gonna fast while he's playing. So it's a good thing. You have some inspiration, inshallah, in the athletes, huh? Okay. Yes.
I have a young man that's thinking of reverting,
Inshallah.
and he is struggling because he works in an environment during the day where it's extreme heat and they have to consume a lot of water because of dehydration.
Yeah.
So how does he deal with that? Does he just have to make it up? And he can't make it up after, but
Yeah.
he's still at work.
That's a very specific question. I gotta ask somebody about this, Brother Mike. I can't give you the answer myself. I have to refer to somebody for the specific case. Inshallah. Right? Yes.
I used to work in a very, very hot environment, and I have somebody who used to work in construction,
Yes.
and it's all 4.5 months job.
Yes.
So what they use, somebody recommended, I don't have a code or anything,
Yeah.
and they said whenever you are off, you do the fast. Whenever you are not working,
Yeah.
at
Again-
least, but I don't
Again,
have
like
exactly
those
when.
specific cases of people, what we're talking about is the majority and the general rule. Exceptions are referred to more knowledgeable scholars who can make those exceptions, right? And so I would have to refer them to someone like that or ask on their behalf, inshallah. Yep? I will do that, bismillah. Moving on to what happens if a person intentionally ruins their fast. Intentionally they ruin their fast. Okay? So if you go down this list, if a person did any of these things, if a person ate or drank intentionally, they have to ask for Allah's forgiveness, make repentance, and make up the fast later. Okay? If a person intentionally vomited, they have to make up that fast later the next day. That day's fast is ruined. We have to fast one more day after Ramadan. Likewise, hijama. Likewise, for a sister who's in her period, if she gets in her period, even like 5 minutes or 2 minutes before Maghrib, unfortunately, sister, your fast did not count. You have to make up the fast next day, inshallah. Okay? Or not next day, after Ramadan. The exception to the rule is marital relations during the day, or specifically intercourse during the day. That is the penalty for this is way more severe. The penalty for this is much more severe because it actually is something that has gone and has violated the sanctity of the fast. Okay? And that's why the penalty is more severe. There is a man who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulallahi halaktu. He said, O Messenger of Allah, I'm ruined. The Prophet ﷺ said, Malak, what happened? He said, Waqa'tu ala imra'ati wa ana sa'im. He said that I had intercourse with my wife while I was fasting. The Prophet ﷺ said to him, هل تجد رقبة تعتقها? He says, number one option. Okay? First option, the first level of the penalty, are you able to free a slave? Okay, a slave that is bound by the bonds of slavery. Are you able to purchase them and set them free? Okay, he said la. He says I can't do this. Second level of the penalty. هل تستطيع أن تصوم شهرين متتابعين? Are you able to fast 2 straight months? So 1st of Shawwal is Eid. From 2nd of Shawwal, day after Eid, for 60 straight days, this man is going to fast. Okay, the Prophet asked him. The man says, no, I can't do this. The Prophet said, هل تجد إطعام 60 مسكينا? Are you able to feed 60 poor people? The man said, no. That's the third level of the penalty. Okay, what was the first level?
Free a slave.
Free a slave. Second level?
60 continuous fast.
60 straight days of fasting. MashaAllah. Third level?
Feed 60 poor.
60 poor people. Okay, or one person 60 times. Either way, right? Like we spoke about. Okay, now فَبَكَثَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم فبينما نحن على ذلك أتي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بعرق فيه تمر قال أين السائل. So now the Prophet is silent and they're all sitting, and then a collection of dates were brought to the Prophet. The Prophet said, where is the questioner? Where is the man who was asking this question? He says, فقال أنا, he says, I'm here, O Messenger of Allah. The Messenger of Allah said, خذ هذا فتصدق به. The Prophet is like, here, take these dates that were just given to me and give this as charity. You can't feed 60 people, use this dates to feed as many as you can. Okay, what do you think that this man said? The man said, فقال الرجل أعلى أفقر. Oh, so he says, أعلى أفقر مني يا رسول الله. He says, is there somebody more poor, more destitute than myself, O Messenger of Allah? فوالله ما بين لابتيها, what's between the two mountains, which is referring to Medina, أهل بيت أفقر مني من أفقر من أهل بيتي. He says there is nobody who is between these two mountains, meaning the city of Medina, who is more destitute and poorer than my family. فضحك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم laughed. And he said, حتى بدت أنيابه, until like you would see his teeth as he was laughing. He says, أطعمه أهلك. He says, okay, go and feed this to your family. Right? So this is the story of this man that is narrated in both Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. What it does, two things. It highlights for us the kafara, right? The kafara for violating the sanctity of the fast by having marital relations during the day, by having intercourse during the day. 3 levels. Freeing a slave, because freeing a slave in Islam is always extremely recommended and extremely valuable. Number 2, you can't do that. Third, 60 straight days of fasting, you can't do that. Feeding 60 people. That's the first point we learned. The second point we learned from this is, subhanAllah, how the Prophet ﷺ was so amazing in the way he answered questions and how approachable he was, right? This man comes and does something completely haram. Okay? The Prophet didn't say to him, you are haram. Or, what's wrong with you? Why'd you do this? Nothing of that nature. The Prophet is now asking him first, what happened? The man explains. Then says, okay, can you do this? The man's like, I can't do this. Can you fast for 60 days? He says, I can't do it. Can you feed 60 people? I can't do it. Can you take this food and just give this as sadaqah? I'm giving it to you for free. Give it to other people and feed them. He's like, there's nobody who's poorer than my family. The Prophet's like, okay, feed your family. You see how beautiful his approach was, that he would answer questions in this very beautiful, very approachable manner, where the person who did something bad doesn't feel so bad about it, right? And that's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that he would be approachable enough for people to come and tell him these things. And when he would answer the question, he would not make them feel like they're like the worst people on earth. Right? He would give them options, give them nasiha, and that's how good change was inspired. Right? That's how these people became better and better because of the Prophet ﷺ's beautiful akhlaq with them. masturbation, even though the result of it is similar to this, is not the same. Is not the same as marital relations. So if a person engages in that and does that, which is not recommended, and they ruin their fast, then they have to make up the fast. There is no kafara, there is no 60 days of fasting upon them. Okay, so this is what is kafara, right? How do you make up the fast? For everything, you just fast again. But for that particular action of marital relations, it is the kafara, the penalty of the 3 levels that we spoke about. Wrapping up quickly, inshallah, with what is recommended and not recommended during Ramadan. Okay, and these are recommendations from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and from the practice of the Sahaba. The recommendation is, number 1, to have the suhoor, the pre-fasting meal, and have that meal as late as possible. Okay, have the suhoor. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Tasahharu fa inna fi suhoori barakatun." He said, have suhoor, have the pre-fasting meal, because that is, in that meal there is blessing. Okay, so it's a beautiful thing. If you don't want to have like a proper, paratha and all that stuff, you can have something more light, have something that's not too heavy, but have something, even if it's a glass of water and some dates or some nuts or something. It's a nice thing to do. If I was to give you the example of Sharif Abdul Rahim, who used to fast while playing basketball, he would always have lots of fruits because it keeps them hydrated. So when I read that when I was in high school, I started eating oranges for suhoor as well. So if you are in school and you have to participate in gym, try to eat like those kind of citrusy foods, inshallah. So that does help. Having the iftar, the meal to break the fast, and having that as early as possible. What does that as early as possible mean? It means they have iftar as soon as Maghrib has come. Okay, you're certain now it is Maghrib, the sun has set. That's it. Have iftar right away. This is the meal to break the fast. It is a recommendation of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, لا يزال الناس بخير. لا يزال الناس بخير ما عجلوا الفطرة. People will remain in a state of goodness as long as they are quick with their iftar. There's wisdom in that, because being quick with the iftar shows you take the ease whenever the ease is there, and you practice the more difficult parts to the best of your ability, to the limit that's required. Okay, and this is part of the Sharia, that we take whatever ease Allah gives us happily. The traveler, the one who's sick, we take that ease happily without any concerns. And the fast that we make up is as if we're fasting in Ramadan. So this is to give that rukhsah, that ease to us, and we accept that, and that is a sign of goodness. Eat dates for iftar. This is a recommendation. The Prophet ﷺ would eat dates for iftar, and he would do this. Al-iftar ala rutawat. He would eat this. If you're not able to do so, فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ if you cannot find it, then min ma. Then you should have some water to break your fast. However, whatever it is that's around, whatever it is you want to eat, there's no problem. But having dates is a good sunnah and it's a recommendation. Making dua during the day, and especially at the time of iftar. The Prophet ﷺ said, ثَلَاثَةٌ لَا تُرَدُّ دَعْوَتُهُمْ الصَّائِمُ حَتَّى يُفْطِرْ وَالْإِمَامُ الْعَادِلُ وَالْمَظْلُومُ. The Prophet said, 3 categories of people, their du'as are always answered. The fasting person, until they have finished their fast. The person who is a leader and they're just. And lastly, a person who is oppressed. Their du'as are always accepted, subhanAllah. So, fasting in a state of dua in the state of fasting, especially at the time of iftar, is highly, highly recommended. This is the time of blessing before we have iftar, so we should take the opportunity to make dua at this time, and this is a recommendation for the Prophet ﷺ. Giving lots of charity, the Prophet ﷺ was described as كَانَ أَجْوَدَ النَّاسِ بِالْخَيْرِ. He was the most generous of people. But then in Ramadan he would be كَانَ أَجْوَدُ مَا يَكُونُ وَكَانَ أَجْوَدَ مَا يَكُونُ فِي رَمَضَانِ. He would be even more generous in Ramadan. حِينَ يَلْقَاهُ جِبْرِيلٌ. When Jibreel alayhi salam, the angel, would meet him, and then that when Jibreel will meet him, he would فَيُدَارِسُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, they would revise the Quran together. So the effect of Ramadan and Quran on the Prophet ﷺ was what? He became even more generous than he usually was. He was already very generous. In Ramadan, because he's fasting and because he is reading more Quran, it made him even more generous. فَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ حِينَ يَلْقَاهُ جِبْرِيلٌ أَجْوَدُ بِالْخَيْرِ مِنَ الرِّيحِ الْمُرْسَلَةِ. The Prophet would be more generous when this situation was happening in Ramadan than a blowing wind. And the blowing wind here is to symbolize that it brings relief to as many people as it touches. Right? It touches many people and brings relief to all of them. And also it's fast. It goes quickly. It just blows through. Right? So it's a lot of people and it's quick. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ was in Ramadan, giving lots of charity because of the good deeds that he's doing during the day and during the night with his fasting and Quran. Being upright in character, of course, is always recommended and always a goal of a Muslim, but especially in Ramadan, it is even more so because the Prophet ﷺ said that مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعَ قَوْلَ الزُّورَ وَالْعَمَلَ بِهِ فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةٌ أَنْ يَضَعَ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. The person who does not stop lying and cheating and bribing, Allah has no need for that person to stop their food and water. Okay? Meaning the spirit of the fast has not been attained by this person who's cheating and lying and being a crook, but they're fasting. Right? The spirit of the fast has completely been missed. Also being someone who is argumentative. The Prophet said, if someone is in the فَإِنْ سَابَّهُ أَحَدٌ أَوْ قَاتَلَهُ فَلْيَقُلْ إِنِّي امْرُؤٌ صَائِمٌ or أَنَا صَائِمٌ. If someone is arguing with you or trying to troll you or something, just say, I am fasting, I'm not going to engage in this behavior. So upright behavior is always recommended, even more so in a state of fasting. What is not recommended is using too much water for gargling or rinsing the mouth. Try to restrict that. I mean, that's a requirement. You don't have to be, completely out of touch with water. You're supposed to use it, gargle, rinse, no problem. Too much is where the problem lies, so being careful of that. Foreplay during fasting, especially for a newlywed couple, is not recommended. Foreplay does not break your fast. Okay, a husband and a wife engaging in acts of affection does not break their fast. However, if that goes all the way, that will break their fast. Or if the man ends up, without going all the way, finishing, that will break his fast. Okay, so it is not recommended that a person do this. However, in the night of Ramadan, everything is back to normal, and in fact, it is a recommendation that a couple engage in acts of affection out after the fasting is complete, so that the house, doesn't become deprived during Ramadan. In the ayat of fasting, the last ayah talks about أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. They are like clothes for you and you are like clothes for them. Okay, the intimacy shouldn't just take a backseat because we're in a state of a spiritual high. The intimacy is part and parcel of our act of worship. It's just the time has now been very, very specifically reduced. So that is not recommended, the foreplay during fasting. And tasting food without cause is also something that is not recommended. Like I mentioned to you, the opinion of Imam Ahmad and Mujahid and Imam al-Bukhari and Ibn Abbas, that يُكْرَهُ ذَوْقُ طَعَامٍ بِلَا حَاجَةٍ. If you don't have a need, without a cause, you shouldn't be tasting food. And even with cause, the lady who's cooking the food or the man who's cooking the food, it's got to be a taste. It cannot go down the throat. So that's the last thing, inshallah, and then after that I don't have anything else left. Those are some of the recommendations, hopefully to get us ready for Ramadan, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, which is starting tonight. And I hope to see you all there tonight. See you all here tonight at 10:15, which is our Salat al-Isha time, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Any questions or comments we will take? Yes, Amisha.
Imam, you said that sahur should be as late as possible.
Yes.
But we have a 10-minute imsak time normally in the calendar.
Yes.
However, I came across a hadith that indicates the Imam can have a drink of water after he makes his adhan and comes out of the down mainstream and out of the Does that mean if I am late, I can eat within those 10 minutes, or I can't?
So it's a very good question. The question of when do you stop eating, right? And the question of the adhan of the mu'adhin. Okay, so back in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were two mu'adhins that would give the adhan at Fajr time. The first one was Bilal radiallahu anhu, and the second was Abdullah ibn Maktoum. Okay, Bilal would give adhan to tell the people that Fajr is close, but it's not Fajr yet. So the Prophet would tell people that if you hear the adhan of Bilal, continue eating hatta tasma'u adhana ibn Maktoum, until you hear the adhan of Abdullah ibn Maktoum. But the adhan of Abdullah ibn Maktoum would be the adhan of Fajr, and that's when people would have to stop eating. Okay? So the situation of the adhan that's the context behind it. So the idea isn't that the person who's giving the adhan can have a sip of water after the adhan is done. To the contrary, they stop eating right as the Fajr time begins. Okay? And then they give the adhan after the Fajr time begins, because that is what the Prophet ﷺ was referring to when he said that about the adhan. The adhan of Bilal was still at the time before dawn. Okay? Now, the time of imsak that is listed in calendars generally is listed as a precautionary measure, and because it's difficult for us in North America to ascertain when is exactly dawn. However, if a person was to say, I will eat until like the minute of dawn, right? It says 4, what is the time? 4:10, for example, right? And this person is like, I will eat until 4:10 a.m. That is technically okay, because fasting starts at Fajr, which is dawn, right? So the imsak time is good to get people the idea that, okay, you should finish up and wrap up, but in reality, they can keep eating until the last minute. Allahu A'lam. Questions or comments?
Sometimes there's
Yes.
tea left, so you can still eat it until azan finish, or you just stop eating when the azan starts?
So the minute the time starts, right? The time will tell you 4:10,
Okay.
right?
So you
4:10
stop
you stop, right? If the muaddin starts to give adhan at 4:11, you go by the time. Now for us, because I'm saying that for us because we go by the time.
You do it with time.
We don't go by the muadzin's adhan. If you are in the Middle East, if you're in Pakistan, India, you go by the muadzin's adhan,
Right.
So that's a different scenario. But for us, we go by the time
Right.
and we stop at the time.
So 4:10, if it is the time, then you stop eating.
At that time.
Just so I clarify
Yes.
what you're saying, I use an application that tells me when Azan starts. So
Yes.
4:41 tomorrow.
4:41, okay.
So that's the cutoff.
That's the cutoff.
Okay.
That's the cutoff.
That's the cutoff.
Because sometimes we keep drinking tea, okay, azan is still happening.
Try to finish the tea before, starts.
No, I'll start early.
Inshallah.
Well, I remember being told that if you had something in your mouth, you could still swallow it.
Of course,
Yeah.
I mean, if something, even if something is between your teeth, and you discover it during the day, right, and it ends up going down your throat, that's fine. That's not a problem, right? But the idea is, again, that you end at the time of dawn.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah
Barakallahu
khairan.
feekum, inshallah. So with that, we'll conclude. Next Sunday at the same time, we have the zakat workshop. Please inform others about it as well. And every Saturday, 1 hour before the iftar, we have the lessons from Surah Kahf workshop, inshallah. So hope to see you all there for
Going to
that.
be recording that as well?
Yes,
So
yes,
that
that will be
can-
on the Facebook page as well. You can
Excellent.
catch that as well, inshallah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's covering for you over there now?